Hello, Fango fans. We're back at the Pavilion. We're in the presence of a legend, Graham McTavish, allowing us to not only with a recognizable voice, but a very recognizable look. You will have seen him in The Hobbit, Witcher, Preacher. We have heard and seen him as well. We've heard him in games like Call of Duty, and we're so honored to have you here. We're going to talk about his illustrious career, what's ahead. There's actually a pretty big project ahead that we're all very excited about, his relationship with horror, and pretty much anything you want to
Anything at all. Anything. We're going to talk about everything. Yeah.
So, well, let's start about your journey. Growing up in Scotland,
Yeah.
arriving in Hollywood, and
Yes.
all this journey in itself. Run me through the cliff notes of how you got there.
Well, I was doing, I mean, the transition from, well, Scotland, I was doing a lot of theatre, moved down to London. I was brought down to London for a production of Richard III. That went very well. But I decided to make the move to America. I was supposed to do a Lord of the Rings musical in the West End. And I pulled out at the last minute because I felt that America was the place that was going to give me more opportunities. And so my wife and child accompanied me. She was only a month old, my baby daughter. We went to America. I arrived, and it was just one of those serendipitous things, I suppose. I arrived, and a week after I got there, I went up for Rambo. And that was, and I got the job. So I arrived in America, got Rambo, and a week later, I was in Thailand filming that. So it was suddenly like, oh my God, this was the right thing to do. And that led to different things, games like you mentioned, like Uncharted and all the rest of it. Did a load of TV, did a few films. And then it was The Hobbit that took me from LA to New Zealand.
Wow.
And that's when I spent 2.5 years filming The Hobbit as a dwarf.
There's a lot of walking.
There was a lot of walking. There was a lot of, enjoyable discomfort is the best way to describe it. And dealing with the sort of latent sadism of Peter Jackson, who just enjoys watching people suffer, really, especially people like me. But it was great.
The horror fans will have been introduced to Peter Jackson, hopefully as well through Dead Alive and movies like that, or and just peoples and bad taste. And so we know that he has this vivid genius mind that also pushes the boundaries.
Absolutely. It was the most extraordinary, life-changing experience. I met people who are still very, very good friends of mine. It introduced me to New Zealand, where I still have a home. My children were brought up in New Zealand, and I have Peter to thank for it. I mean, he gave me this wonderful gift, and in return, I gave him lots of running around New Zealand, fighting imaginary creatures. He used to pretend to be the dragon. I remember he used to shout out and pretend to be the dragon, going, "Rah, rah," and we were supposed to react to that with a tennis ball and a thing. He's like a wonderful, overgrown child in the best possible way. So he makes movies for himself. And I've always remembered that. He told me that once. I make these films for me. And that's what gives him such a pure vision in all the films that he's made. And like them or not, that's what he does them for. And I think that's kind of admirable, actually.
Yeah, I very often feel that there's perhaps a similarity and kinship between him and, for example, Guillermo del Toro.
Very much so.
And this sort of wonderful world that is inside their head and that they inhabit in their work. And obviously we benefit by seeing where those movies take us.
Oh, yeah.
As an actor, arriving and in this world that obviously inhabits the wonderful brain of a writer, director like Peter Jackson. What was the process like to actually meet him where he wants you to meet him?
Oh, that's a very good question. He doesn't storyboard, which I find very interesting. He carries the film in his head, the entire film. And so he knows very much what he wants. And then you just present him with options, and then he picks whatever works. We do lots of takes, like 20, 25 takes on the same thing. He's very technical as well. So he wants things to be very precise. He likes camera movement, all of this sort of thing. But what I have to be concerned about is being faithful to the character that I'm playing, in this case, Dwalin, and telling the story as it needs to be told, not come up with lots of sort of crazy ideas of my own. I mean, look, for instance, we didn't improvise in The Hobbit. We improvised in Rambo, but we didn't improvise in The Hobbit. And I enjoy both, but I like being given enough freedom, so I'm not like being told, stand there, do this, speak like this, do that, because that just closes me off. But I also, I like the possibility of improvisation, but it just wasn't possible on The Hobbit. It was too.
Must have been. I have to say, amongst the people I would love to meet one day, Peter Jackson. I mean, Dead Alive was one of the movies that just sent me on a whirlwind into my horror journey. So I big fan of his work.
Yeah.
And of course, after that, delving. I'm half from Finland, and
are you?
And so
Gulligan.
That will be more Norwegian and Swedish, but we
really?
Yeah.
I thought I was in Finland, and they said that was how you say cheers.
It's kippis.
Ah, yes, that's the polite one. Then they told me, I've been listening.
Hölken.
Oh, Hölken. Oh, well, there you go.
Did I mispronounce it?
No, because I grew up in France. My Finnish roots are sometimes.
I understand.
But
anyway,
interestingly, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is very inspired by Finnish mythology.
That's right.
The Kalevala.
Yes.
And it's. There's a kinship, obviously, with this, and when embarking, and I'm not going to make it all about The Hobbit, but I will ask you one last thing. When preparing for The Hobbit and preparing for, did you look into things beyond, obviously, the Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit book? Mm-hmm. Did you look a little bit into the surrounding?
The whole mythology? Do you know what? No, I didn't. To be absolutely honest, and people have asked me that with the different things that I've worked on, particularly something like The Hobbit. But I try and really concentrate on the script. I mean, like when I did Outlander, obviously there was all these books. I didn't read the books, because I wanted to just live the character that was given to me through the script, and that's what I did. That's what I did with The Hobbit. I mean, in terms of preparation for The Hobbit, the main preparation I did was a physical preparation, because it was going to be so grueling physically. I mean, we had 35 kg costumes and prosthetics and fighting and running and all the rest of it. So I did 5 months of physical training before I started filming. And that's what allowed me to do 2.5 years of it.
Keep the stature.
Well, otherwise I would have been in a terrible state. It would have been dreadful.
This is not where your journey into fantasy stories kind of ended, because obviously you took part in Witcher.
Yeah.
You continued this sort of kinship with sort of medieval time, House of the Dragon.
Yes.
What is your affinity with sort of those fantasy stories?
I know. It's kind of strange, isn't it? I just can't keep away from the sort of swords and cloaks and candles and horseback. They never give me a mobile phone to use or sit behind a desk or anything like that. I'm always running around doing stuff like that. But I think it's a sort of a little bit mutual attraction, because I love watching those things. I've loved reading about them. I loved, like with Preacher, for instance, I loved reading the books, the graphic novels, really wanted to be a part of that world. And it's the same with, something like The Witcher, House of the Dragon. I was a big fan of Game of Thrones. So I really get drawn to things that I enjoy. Same with the project that's coming up this year with Spartacus. I love that world. I love history. I love the idea that I can dress up and play and be someone completely different. Dress as a Roman, dress as somebody in the Middle Ages, dress as a knight. It's every child's dream, really, and I'm lucky enough to be able to do it, I suppose.
Did you decorate your house now like a medieval castle?
No, you joke.
Are you storing a dragon in the basement?
You joke. My wife just can't bear it. It's my world is consigned to a small part of the house. So I have swords from House of the Dragon. I've got the axes from The Hobbit. I've got all sorts of stuff, and it's all in one room. And but my wife rarely goes in there. Let's put it that way.
My wife was not always partial to some of the props I brought back from my horror movies, so I completely understand that. They're dear to us, but they're also.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Preacher, and I really want to discuss Preacher because I was a crazy fan of this show, but also I love the comic book.
Me too.
And it's so. How did the project come about? And how would you describe your journey in that wonderful show that just...
Oh, God. I mean, with Preacher, yes, I was a huge fan of the books. I read them when they came out. And when I heard that they were going to be making this TV show, I really pushed to be seen for it. And then when they asked me to talk about the Saint of Killers, that is my favorite character from the books. And so I was just like, and I met with Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, who were the producers on it. We just got on. And I gave them a saint that they were looking for, I guess. That he has a sort of Terminator-like quality, that there's nothing will stop him. But also just, I mean, one of my favorite, without giving away too much, I just love how he is so implacable, just uncompromising, like driven individual. And for somebody who grew up in the UK to play a cowboy, I mean, it's just total dream come true.
The show has very, very, very dedicated fans.
Yeah.
Obviously, Fangoria will have a lot of the fans because of it. It's a show that marries the sort of the sort of Western to horror to it delves into
vampires.
So many, delves into every direction. So we obviously horror fans obviously had a blast, but the show, the books, the comic books, they had a very dedicated following. So how was the reception? How were your interaction with fans?
Oh no, it's been great. Preacher fans are some of the most, dedicated, passionate fans that I have. If you like Preacher, I can almost always spot people who like Preacher, actually, when I do fan conventions. They're just, I love all the shows that I've been in, but Preacher really is one of my favorites. And I think it's a very clever, elevated show. It's very smart. The performances are just fantastic. They did such a wonderful job because Seth and Evan were massive fans of the books, so they wanted it to be good, and it was such a pleasure riding down a Western Street on a horse with a Stetson and 44 Walker Colts and a cavalry saber. It was every boy's dream come true. I was just couldn't believe it, but it was
Your character was frightening.
I've got the coat. I've got the coat and the guns at home, and the spurs. Oh yeah, I don't wear them out though.
No, only at home. That's the part that your wife is asking you to wear at home.
Yes,
great. Yeah, it's good to know. Again, this is a show that made us travel, and really we were all very sad when it ended. Although it ended quite wonderfully, and it just it rounded up.
Yeah.
It's always, my mother always told me the best things are the one that you stop just at the moment where people wish they could have that little bit.
I agree.
And
I agree.
I felt that this was the great thing about this show.
Yeah.
And your contribution to character was just phenomenal.
Thank you.
Thank you for your performance in the show. And looking forward, because you are now taking part in another big universe.
Yes.
A show that, again, a big successful show that Starz had put on, Spartacus. We had, it took on Roman history in a sort of fresh and twisted way.
Yeah.
It was wonderfully original and depraved.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
But it was also very enticing and kept us all engaged. And now it's coming back.
Yeah.
You're part of it, but it's not a straight lineage of the show. They're taking a very new approach. Would you like to tell us more?
Yeah, I mean, the essential thing that they've done here, they've taken the premise that one of the characters from the original series who died is given a second chance in life. He emerges from the underworld, given a second chance with his life, and what would have happened if he hadn't died. And this takes the story from that point. So he runs a ludus. I'm his doctore. We're like partners in crime together. What's interesting about him, the guy who runs the ludus, he was a character that wasn't a hero in the first Spartacus. He was a bit of a dodgy guy, and he still is. So he's a great anti-hero. I actually play much more of a solid, moral individual, although I do kill quite a lot of people.
Are you saying that the show didn't drop its blood count?
I mean, my blood count alone is quite enormous. Yeah, I do a lot of killing in that show. Probably, no, I killed more people as the Saint in Preacher, but this is a close run second. And it's, as you say, it's a wonderful exploration of Roman history. I think actually, frankly, quite an accurate exploration of Roman history. It's honest. This is what it would have been like, this depravity, there are no rules. You can do whatever you like. And I'm interested in that notion of how people behave if they are given a license to just do anything.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily apply to my character in the show, because I'm an ex-slave and there are certain moral constraints that I have. But there are characters who are just depraved in the show. And it's just interesting to explore that world. And I think people will like it a lot, actually.
So that's a very interesting dichotomy, because obviously the liberty it's taking with Roman history mixed with a sort of accurate sort of depiction or perception and interpretation of the way things were, especially with the rule of law and the power of the powers that be, and the way the society was built. Mixed as well with mythology, clearly, because coming back from the dead is a big part of the Roman mythology. Talking to as well a lot of horror fans who are going to want to delve into that world. Is that what is the part that in this fascinating take on it? What is the one perhaps element that they can really look forward to the most, besides obviously copious amount of blood?
Copious amounts of blood. An interesting retelling of history, I suppose, is one side of it. That if you're given again the opportunity to say, what would have happened if you did this instead of that? What would your path be? Just like in your own life, we all have forks in our lives, forks in the road. Where, when I moved to America, what would have happened if I'd stayed? What would have happened if I hadn't done The Hobbit? All of these little questions that we all ask ourselves in our lives. What would have happened if, we hadn't met our wives? Who would we have met? Had children, not had children. And so this show gives us a chance to explore a different path and what might have happened in that world. And it's terribly intriguing. There is violence, there's sex, there's politics, there's backstabbing, literal and metaphorical. It's just this wonderful. There is never a dull moment in that show, literally never. And just reading the scripts, you would be reading it and you go, oh, what? Oh my! It was a bit like Preacher. That's how I felt when I would read Preacher. I think, I can't believe this. What? And I love shows like that. So. Yeah.
When can we look forward to it?
We are doing San Diego Comic-Con in July. We're going to do a big launch there, huge launch. And it's going to be premiering probably September is when it's going to be premiering on your TVs. So, looking forward to it. We
can't wait. So I want to talk about in your journey, you delved into many genres in the way, for example, here on the Cannes film market, we talk about genre films. Genre films is not just horror, it's sci-fi, fantasy, it is thrillers, and you've obviously delved in a lot of them.
Sure.
So how would you describe your, throughout your career, your relationship with genre films and perhaps your impetus to explore the various facets of genre films?
Well, I find them fascinating. I've always been a big fan. Because they're also so outside of our own lived experience, That's what's interesting. It's not a drama about a family that, with an alcoholic father and kids being put into care and things like that, which are very legitimate and very interesting, very thought-provoking. This is this kind of stuff that takes you somewhere completely different. The film that I did 2 years ago with Dougie Rowe, Dirty Boy, that we had here last year, I think, and it's getting a limited theatrical release this year. It's going to go onto platforms. That kind of creepy, disturbing, psychological thriller. I've always enjoyed it. The Wicker Man being one of my absolute favorite films of all time. I did the sequel to The Wicker Man, The Wicker Tree, which, while not as good in a way, there were all sorts of little problems with it, but it was such a great experience to work with Robin Hardy, who did the original. Things like Midsummer, the Vanishing, those sort of disturbing psychological horror movies that literally creep up on you. You're sitting there and okay, nothing bad is happening. Nothing's happening. Why am I feeling so disturbed? And it's just, I love that feeling. I'm not a big, I can watch, those sort of jump horror kind of movies where you get scared shitless. Oh, what? But I like the ones that just take you over and make you go, okay, now something bad is coming. I just feel it. And that's very much the case with Dirty Boy and the kind of films that I just described. I love that. And this here, I just, one of the things I would have to say about Fantastic Pavilion, which I'd never been to before in my life, it's just incredible. There are so many movies. I mean, you just don't, and because it's a wonderful international showcase, you realize that there are all of these fantastic creative people all over the world making all of this stuff. And if you're lucky enough to have access to it, and that's I guess my only complaint with the industry as a whole, is that there's so much that sometimes you miss stuff that you would really enjoy. I've seen like posters for stuff here, and you go, oh, I definitely want to see that. And I've never heard of it. And you know, that's a really exciting part of being here, having all of these different nationalities mingling together. It's not just Americans, it's not just Brits, it's everybody. And it's a very exciting place that makes you feel very hopeful, actually, about the film industry.
First of all, thank you for that, because when Pablo approached me to be involved, and I jumped on board to help develop this, and we created this pavilion to be that genre hub.
Oh,
we wanted to bring the fact that while countries are represented in pavilion, our international horror community bonded over this community deserved its own hub, and this is why this love of it is one thing. So what you're saying in your first visit goes straight to our heart, and thank you for saying that. In this first visit, and how do you feel? You know, bringing and talking about your project. Obviously, Dirty Boy was last year here, and you're here now this year.
Yeah.
How do you feel like very much centered on this? How does it feel being in a place like this sort of galvanizes the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, what happens is, well, my experience so far anyway, is that you arrive thinking, oh, this is how it's going to go. This is, you know, you'll do these meetings, that meeting, and everything. But actually, it's a very wonderful, organic, beautifully chaotic process, is the best way I can describe it. So the conversations you start aren't necessarily with the people you expect to be having the conversations with. They lead to different conversations. People start talking to you about their projects or future projects that they might want you to be interested in. And it's just so stimulating. It's not dry and technical. It's people. You can literally feel the excitement and love of film when you're here. It's not this sort of, you know, it's all about the money. And I mean, obviously it is about the money to a great degree. And, you know, I'm here partly to try and raise money for Doug's next film, Gun, that we're going to be doing together. And, you know, and that's a process that I'm not familiar with. So I just try and be me. Talk enthusiastically about what I want to do, meet people that may or may not be able to help, and in the meantime, meet some really cool people who are doing some just amazing stuff, sometimes with limited resources. Just their commitment and enthusiasm is infectious. You know, you come away from a day here pretty exhausted. I'm sure you're very exhausted, but you come away from here, but you feel like, yes.
So,
this, you know.
On that note, I have a final question for you, very much in tune with everything you just described. Often as horror filmmakers, we're described as mad scientists. We are experimenting with filmmaking, but storytelling and in the ways they come together and they bring a story. It's like, so when I tell you that horror and genre filmmakers are mad scientists, what does that tell you, and how perhaps with your experience? How relatable do you feel that?
Well, very relatable. I want to work with mad scientists, you see. That's what I'm interested in. I think anybody who goes into the entertainment industry has to be a little insane. It just almost by definition, certainly speaking as an actor, mad, crazy thing to do. Anybody involved in the arts, the visual arts, why you would make that decision. And the answer to that question is that you have no choice. So when you talk about being mad or a mad scientist, if a mad scientist is somebody who has to go into his laboratory and work into the night trying to create something from nothing, then that is the film industry. That is the genre film industry. But that's a world I want to be a part of. I don't want to choose to do something with my life. I want it to be imperative that I do it. So, you know, when somebody rings me up and says, we're shooting an indie movie in wherever, Canada, it's going to be freezing cold, you're going to be fighting a monster, there's this happening, this happening, this happening, are you in? Immediately, I'm in. Immediately. Obviously the script is very, very, very important, but the notion of it is what excites me immediately. I'm just like, it sounds fantastic. So I've had a life experience of throwing myself into things, not necessarily with too much forethought, but it's kept me very stimulated and busy and very happy, actually.
All I'm left to ask is, pick any characters of the many iconic characters you've presented, and to perhaps sign off and send some love to our horror fans.
Okay. Right. Well, I think it's got to be the Saint. See you in hell.
Scare you later.